we should be going live on Facebook. So, Richard, welcome. Glad to have you here. Let's kick this off.
How fragile our food supply chain really is. If COVID showed us anything, it's how fragile our food supply chain really is.
I would hear the news talking about empty store shelves in the city, no meat. But yet I'm driving through the country and I see cattle standing in the field that a customer could buy. My name's AJ Richards, raised in St. George, Utah. My family are 5 generations of ranchers.
I'm Brooke Ants. Today it can be incredibly difficult to be a farmer or rancher, even for people that have been doing it generationally. It's not because of the work, but it's actually pressures from the big 4.
4 companies control 85% of our food supply chain. And in many cases, it's very clear that they're buying off politicians.
And if North Korea or China's Great Leap Forward have taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. Luckily, it's not all doom and gloom.
What's missing is a competitive marketplace. So I'm thinking about these unsold cows and I just had this aha moment. What if somebody built a website similar to Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it highlighted and connected you with local farmers and ranchers so that we could actually go right to the producer?
So FromTheFarm.org is a digital farmers market connecting you, the customer, with local farmers and ranchers who produce meat, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. Plus, you can pick it up locally, and many producers even have shipping options.
The most important value of decentralization is food sovereignty. The ability for you as a sovereign individual to have the right to buy your food and source it where you choose. If you know the name of the producer growing it, you have now insulated yourself from not having it, like when the store shelves are empty.
We, the people, can take back control of our food. Invest in your family, invest in From the Farm.
From the Farm helps families access food with more nutrition than what you're going to find at the grocery store.
Studies have shown repeatedly that locally farmed produce is more nutritionally rich than factory farmed food. It just is. You can't beat it.
Because these small family farmers and ranchers are growing it how they were taught by their grandparents and great-grandparents, which is quality over quantity, because they're putting their personal name on that product, not hidden behind some massive corporate logo.
Hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, and chemical treatments, including carbon monoxide, are just some of the things these corporations do to increase profits and improve shelf life, not your life.
Meanwhile, up to 40% of your meat's nutritional value is lost in the process. There's also the environmental impact from all the mileage your food racks up. Apples, 1,556 miles. Lettuce, 2,055 miles. And beef, a staggering 2,874 miles, all resulting in unnecessary pollution across the country. But when you buy from local growers, these numbers turn into these numbers.
Not only is shopping with From the Farm decreasing pollution and reclaiming your food sovereignty, but you are also getting a superior product. Parallel food economies or buying local is the future of food.
I was actually the first person to invest in From the Farm. I was 100% all in. I've started businesses, I've had some really cool opportunities in the entertainment industry and the sporting world, but getting healthy food into more Americans' hands is more important than anything I've ever done.
So right now we've assembled our team. We've got some amazing people on board to execute and make this happen. Like Isaac Barlow, who knows how to scale tech companies in the blue collar space because he's done it before. Now we're in the process of raising the funding from you guys to help us scale this to the next level. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision, it's an investment in our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
There we go. So, Brooke, you're on mute and we're back in video.
Perfect.
I'm sure you're texting all kinds of people. Just a little point of housekeeping for anybody on our live chat. This is our first time utilizing StreamYard, and I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Heroes Media Group. He's a friend of mine, been a friend for a long time. His name's Adam Bird. He founded Heroes Media Group. They feature a lot of podcasts covering different topics. I've had a few podcasts on his platform before, and we're just grateful that he has allowed us to jump in here, first time using StreamYard on his platform. This is great. We're going to be able to do all kinds of cool things and share with you guys throughout the evening. So if you see the comments come in from Heroes Media Group, that's just because we're new and I didn't know how to change it from his to ours. And so little housekeeping there, but we're grateful for Adam and Heroes Media Group. All right. With that aside, you guys saw the video. This is what we're about, what we're trying to do. So let's jump into a little bit of the history of why we did this and how we got here, Brooke.
I still remember the first meeting.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's been a long time. 5 years in April is how long we've been working on this. So you and I first started talking about beef direct to consumer in 2020 when we were selling for my cousin Ramsey's ranch, Anchor Brand Ranch. If you guys want to check them out on YouTube. And first, it was just going to be finding local Southern Utah producers, bringing them together and doing a direct chain.
Yeah, it was really just trying to create, how can we create some like really awesome opportunities for our community? How can we help our community here?
Yeah.
And it seemed like well, it is the best thing, but at the time too, it was like, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like my family, your family. And then from Southern Utah, there's like the core families. There's the families that settled here. First people here putting in all of the work to create community, stability, food, water, shelter, and then grow it. And it was actually really exciting for AJ and I, especially for me, when he came to me and we started talking about beef and started talking about how can we help our community. The people that go somewhere first, that pioneer somewhere, and they put in the work and they build it and they start it, and it becomes something thriving, a whole community, a whole city, a whole town, whatever it is. Any opportunity to be able to add to that, like to facilitate the next step in a process or something that you can do so it continues to prosper and people continue to feel better, healthier, work together, and kind of create a tight-knit community again. Because with all of the basically technology, communities are really not as tight-knit as they were, right?
Right.
So yeah, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. And we've learned a lot since we started going down this route, because when you go from local food system and trying to figure that out, that's really complex. And then when you scale it to national food systems, but still national and the goal of becoming hyper local, it gets even more complex. Then you start bringing in legal challenges and logistical challenges, and on top of what already is a challenge, which for us right now, the biggest challenge is meeting our producers.
Mm-hmm.
We launched the soft launch in March, which happens to be spring. And if you're an ag, what happens in spring? Everything starts happening in spring. So we currently have 50 producers in some stage, 50 producers that are live. Let me pull up our map real quick. So we've got 50 producers around the country that are live. This is, if you go to FromTheFarm.org to the map view, this is what you'll see. And so, of course, our first goal is one producer in every state. That's goal number one. If we can get one producer in every state, that's a big benchmark for us. So we have 50 producers live, but we have 150 at some level of sign up. And I think a big part of that's because we launched in spring and they got busy, and, trying to, like any of us, trying to sit down and figure out how to set up a new system takes a little bit of focus. And when you're focused on everything else, you got to prioritize what you're doing. Right. So
I could almost say firsthand, that's probably the biggest hiccup, because working and helping my dad and trying to get things done, and we got to move cows and we got to build fence. Everything it's a whole day, and it's every day. And you create a triage, you create your to-do list, and you have to kind of pick through, like, what are the things I have to get done today?
Yeah.
And so when it's something like From the Farm, which is a very, very good endeavor in what we're doing, and it's going to create tons of opportunity for all those producers, they still have to get done everything else first, because that is currently what is paying the bills. And if, it's just not as simple. Even though I can think about it this way, and probably many people watching or listening would think about it the exact same way. Like, it takes 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's not going to take that long.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that long. It's like, you also have to understand too, for the most part, the people, the producers, the farmers, the people that are owning, running, taking care of the property, they're not from the same, they're not it's not important to them to like know how to do Instagram,
Yeah.
to like know how to do all the platforms and like have a profile and, you know, do social media or be very technologically savvy. You don't need to know how to do any of that except for run your tractor. And if you've got some new doodads on that, then you kind of learn how to handle that. Yeah. But it's like, it's unnecessary for them to know how to handle all these things. So they're getting here. They're halfway there, and they'll be on the platform very soon.
Yeah. And so just to kind of break it down for you guys. So when we were selling direct to consumer for my family's ranch in 2019, that's where we learned all the challenges that come with going direct. You've got logistical challenges. You got to know box sizes and insulation and dry ice. You've got to understand, is FedEx better than UPS or UPS better than FedEx? Also learning, you know, how far you can ship beef frozen and how to ship that properly so that it gets there frozen. So on the logistical side, that is a daunting challenge. And so one of the things that we're building into our system is an education center to simplify that process. And because of the number of producers that we're representing and going to be representing, we're also able to simplify the acquisition of the materials that are needed for those producers. So it all takes a lot of building and design and development to do this. So these are future iterations, which is why we're doing the crowdfunding. There's a more philosophical reason that we'll get into, but that money that we raise is going to further develop the platform in many ways to simplify the process. The other side of that, the other side of the coin that's also very difficult is the marketing. You know, if you're marketing your beef direct to consumer, Facebook groups and farmers markets is really the only way to do it and do it within reason on your finances, because otherwise you're going to spend $2,000 to $5,000 a month hiring a brand rep, and the brand rep isn't going to guarantee sales. They're just going to put your name out there and hopefully sales come in. And so the vision was, you know, all these people were offering different services when we were selling direct, and none of them offered what I needed the most, which was marketing. If somebody could say, hey, we're going to bring you customers, you just have to fulfill it, I'm all in. That'd be a dream. Now, of course, only if it works financially. If you're offering to do that, but it's going to cost me, you know, 50%, or, you know, currently the rancher only gets 14 cents on the dollar, all the middlemen take the rest. And so we flip that on its head, and we're a commission based, and it's 15% commission of only what we sell. So we have to do the work first before we get anything back. And that commission goes right back into furthering the development of the platform and more marketing. That's why we say our vision is that we are the Airbnb of local food. And the reason we describe it that way is because Airbnb had to build a tech platform to facilitate business, but yet their primary goal was to market the platform so customers would come there to do the rentals. We're doing the same thing with From the Farm. And so we will never beat the big guys dollar for dollar. No producer of any product will ever beat big food and big ag and big pharma in marketing. But we can through collaboration, just like we've seen people rallying behind certain corruption that faces our producers, like the dairy challenge that was going on in Oregon, or the water curtailment in Idaho, or the land grabs that were happening in South Dakota. I mean, these things get stopped because people are paying attention and they share it out in mass numbers when it happens. And so those things either get killed if they're bad, or pushed along if it's what we want.
Or killed for the time being.
Yeah, really, that's the truth. Killed for the time being. If we don't pay attention, they'll sneak it back in later.
No, for real. And like that reality right there is why it's just another reason why it's so important for building this community.
Yeah.
You know, it really is voting power that can be harnessed when you need it most, or when we have a producer that's, you know, going through something that they cannot fight on their own. Well, we are right here.
Yeah.
Whole community's right here.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking online right now to see who's here, and Lazy J is on there.
Nice.
We love Lazy J. That's Braden. Braden actually is our lead investor on the WeFunder campaign. He's awesome. We've been friends for a long time. People keep tagging us in my stuff and his stuff. You guys should get together, and we're connected. So Braden's here. He's online. He's helping answer a bunch of questions on there, which is great. Let's see. So I do want to answer a question or a statement by Steve out of the Wild 3D. Steve's another friend, has some amazing content. But he said, people need to realize when farm food is ready, they need to store up 3 years worth of it's the first time buying, not 10 pounds of beef. So where Steve comes from and what he's trying to teach is preparedness, having food storage. You know, Brooke, you and I grew up in a culture where food storage was a huge conversation. And I remember
it was a family activity.
Yes. Canning and putting stuff under the bed and stacking the beds or wherever you had storage. That's definitely was a family activity. I knew people that their bed frame was cans of food and they just set the box spring on top.
My mom talks about, like, my mom and dad's first home together, that their mattress was on top of cans of food.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that. They didn't have a bed frame.
Yep.
They had the mattresses and they were on cans of food.
Yep.
And when I was growing up, because I'm the youngest in the family, I knew that we always had food storage.
Uh-huh.
But whenever we used it, especially because you're so young, like the idea of like why we would need it was like, no, we don't need it. It was always like, oh, we had food storage because you go to grandma's house and she always opened up a new can of like dried apples.
Yeah.
Or potato pearls.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yep.
But yeah, it fell off. You know, when I was probably in high school, you didn't hear as many people doing it or canning.
Yep.
But it makes me it makes me feel like I just missed so much opportunity to learn how to do a lot of those things. And now at 35, I'm like, I want to pickle. I want to can.
Yep.
I want to just not need to go to the store for like anything except for odds and ends.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife's downstairs right now, freeze drying tomatoes. And so we are trying to pick up on that. We have a ton of chickens. We've only got 4 people in our house. We've got like 37 chickens. So they're laying like crazy. So we're doing what's called water glassing and freeze drying. Water glassing, it's pickling lime and water. And then you fill the jar with eggs, unwashed eggs. And they have to be clean. So we've got a nice little chicken coop thing that the eggs roll down so they don't get dirty. So we're doing all kinds of stuff, trying to relearn what's been lost. I remember though, in 2008, when the market crashed in 2008, I heard many stories from people who heeded the warning of food storage, and it was food storage that allowed them to make it through that. You know, a lot of times we hear food storage and we think disaster, like we're preparing for an emergency disaster, whether it's a fire, a flood, an economic collapse in 2024, whatever. That's, you know, we're thinking those ways, but they were ready for a real estate bubble collapse without knowing that's what they were prepared for. And what made them make it while they kept their house was because they didn't have a food bill. Their food bill went right into the food they had stored. So with that, the other thing that Steve said is that people need to know when you produce a steer, the timing, right? And so we've become the system we're relying on. The complexity of the system is precisely what makes us so vulnerable, because now any one of those things can go wrong and the whole thing will collapse. So if there's because we transport so much by ocean or by highway, if there's an oil problem, right, a fuel problem, you've got a problem with your collapse. You know, in research I was doing recently, I found that there's roughly 30 plants that process 80% of the meat we consume, the beef we consume in America, 30. Then you cross that with 25 million illegals. And we know for a fact that many of them, there are essentially sleeper cells of different cultures waiting to be called up. We know this. This is not me saying this. This is actually information put out by even the federal agencies trying to hide it. They're now saying, yeah, well, we can't hide it anymore. Listen, people, processing facilities are extremely soft targets. And by soft target, they're not hard to take down. And so we've seen it before where one massive processing facility gets burnt to the ground and it significantly changes access and affordability. Prices will keep going up. In 2021, one of the bigger meat packers, they were hacked, and they had to pay an $11 million ransom to release it. So let me just tie that back into what Steve was saying. As we start shifting our practices and how we source food, we also have to shift what we think about how we buy food. And what I'm referring to and what Steve's talking about is, if you're buying strawberries in Montana in the winter, that's because we have a complex food system. If that food system changes, you're not going to have strawberries in the winter, right? As an example, if you're buying beef, it's smart to buy a deep freezer and have a backup generator or something as needed for that deep freezer. But it's smart to buy a deep freezer and buy a whole half or quarter of a cow. Not only will you make sure you have food in storage to eat throughout, the days that are lean, you'll also save money, because as we were talking earlier, boxes cost money, insulation costs money, shipping it out in smaller quantities costs lots of money. A lot of producers would prefer to sell you in bulk. And because you're buying in bulk, they can reduce the cost because you're taking a bunch of burden on the logistics off of them. Now, in those particular cases, you need to buy closer to home because, shipping 100 pounds of beef is expensive. You'll pay as much for shipping probably, or close to, as you did for the beef itself. So finding local to buy in bulk is also something that we need to start wrapping our minds around. Some of you here are ready for that. Some of you live in apartments that doesn't allow for it. We get it. Everybody's in a different place, but we're just sharing what you need to know so you can make the proper decisions around that. So buying in bulk is really helpful.
I will say, it always comes across as if it's like scary.
Yeah.
I've had the conversations, like I grew up with freezers full of beef, whether it was, or venison, elk, whatever the matter. We've always done that. We've always had that. And people that I know and friends that, they don't have a deep freezer, they've reached out to me like wanting to get beef. It's really worth the investment. It seems like a lot. You're like, I'm going to get a whole beef. It's going to cost you anywhere from like $2,500 to like $4,000 for an entire beef. That will feed your whole family.
Yep.
For a year at minimum.
Yeah.
At minimum.
We bought a whole beef in our house. We primarily eat beef, although we do have chicken. We raised about 30 of our own. I mean, by the time we were done, I think we had 30. We started with 44. Listen, when you're raising meat birds, they just die. It's interesting. But so we raised a bunch of our own chickens. We filled our freezer with that, but we bought a whole beef, family of 4, and we're still finishing up going through that beef. Now we're ready to buy another half a cow just to keep our freezer topped off. But that's how we do it. And we know we're good. We've got the basic needs in our home. If there's an emergency. Now that doesn't mean we may not have to barter for some other things if it got that bad, but we have beef to barter and other things that we can do that with. So, but let me just share some details with you guys so you can see where we're coming from. I know when you hear us, you're hearing it from the exposure you've had in the food space, which could be minimal. We've spent 5 years deep diving into the food system. We spent 3.5 years before even coding our first line of code, asking the farmers and ranchers what would help. I had my basic experience. Brooke, you have your experience, but we also wanted to know from as many producers as possible how this should look. So we did that before we started. And then when we started, we have a laundry list of things to do to improve and make it better. Those all came from our farmers and ranchers that are on there. We're literally building this for them and for you, the consumer, because we take your feedback as well. And we figure out how to make it FromTheFarm.org more user-friendly on that side. Okay, so let me show you guys some stuff. The first thing I'm going to share with you, a lot of people don't recognize that our farmers have been under direct attack by our own government since World War II. This is a bipartisan attack. The pendulum swings. It goes from the right to the left, to the right to the left, but they've all been working towards what seems to be a captured market by big corporations because they're being bought off. Now, in that video we played, we made a lot of claims and we can back those up. That's why we have FromTheFarm.org/research. Might be live right now, might still be being built out, but we wanted to back up everything we were saying. So to back up that our government's been after our producers, I'm going to share this quote with you real quick. So this came from the Center of Economic Development in 1962. The movement of people from agriculture has not been fast enough to take full advantage of the opportunities that improving farm technologies and increasing capital create. The CED proposed an adaptive approach to utilize positive government action to facilitate and promote movement of labor and capital where they will be most productive. In other words, their goal was to remove 1/3 of our farmers off of farms in 5 years. So let me break that quote down for you. Basically, what they're saying is farm technology's come so far. We need to produce food and feed the whole world. We know that's going to kick off all of our small farms and ranches. The families are going to be destroyed, but we can control it better when everything is under larger corporate control, because now we have fewer strings we have to pull than to try to do that across 8 million producers. The reason I say 8 million producers is because this is what our current producer data looks like. We had farms in millions, over 6 million small farms and ranches around 1930. And then since then, we have seen decline over time. This area right here is when they're talking about the movement has not been fast enough. We got to move 1/3. Now consider that was mentioned right at this time. They'd already decimated the small family farms and ranches, and they were still looking for ways to continue that trend. And so that's what we're seeing. The green line, you're seeing that the acreages of farms are increasing, meaning the small farms are going away, the big farms are gobbling them up and making those much larger. So that's what you're seeing in those numbers there. So, and yet the number of acres we're farming is declining. So reduction, I just read somewhere in preparation for this that we've lost the farm ground equal to twice the size of Texas, is what I want to say I saw recently. It was Maine on an earlier report, and now it's like Texas on the current report. So that's farm ground that is now built on. I grew up, or didn't grow up, but I lived in Phoenix for 12 years, and every time we'd go home, we'd travel across the East Valley, or excuse me, the West Valley, and there were farms everywhere, produce farms. It is all warehouses now. It's sickening to drive through there and just watch one farm after the other get decimated and turned into warehouses.
Well, that's like being out here.
Yep. It's exactly
Except it's not warehouses, it's houses, it's apartments, it's condos.
Yeah. Yep.
It's you can look at it a couple different ways. You can be the kind of person that looks at it and thinks like, well, that's just what happens.
Yep.
And people gotta live somewhere, and you got to develop, and it's just, you got to move with the times, and it's 2024. And then you're the other person that's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, when has it ever been a good idea to decimate in a town or city? Not all, but almost, or if not most of the land and area that can literally help your city be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Grow your own food. It's it breaks my heart too when families, the younger kids, generations grow up and they just sell off all the land that's been in that family for generations. And some people, I can understand why what could be going on that would take you to that point. But then you look at what they cost, and you look at the kind of money rolling in, and the first thought I have is like, do you understand that you will never get that back? You will never get that back. Yep. And me and people like that, we're not the same. And I just can't quite understand why you would ever sell off acres and acres of land that's been in your family just so you can put more money in your bank account so you can drive one of those shitty Tesla trucks. Devin calls them a tuna can. Or no, sorry, not Devin, my sister, Robin.
That's funny.
So does Drew.
Yeah.
Mama, here's a tuna can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I want to dive into that a little bit more, but let me just share what's on the screen real quick. So this is our cattle inventory in the entire country. So there are 87.2 million head of cattle in the inventory. Of that, cows and heifers, mama cows and soon to be mama cows, are 37.6 million. So when we're talking about 87 million, we're talking about all livestock, meaning they're not all ready to be processed. So if there was an emergency and the vast amount of imports stopped coming in, we've got 87 million head and they're not all ready to be processed. So that's a scary place to be. So, that I just wanted to really help share with you guys what we're actually seeing and learning as we're going through this. But back to what you were saying, Brooke, I think you and I both agree that if farming was stable, like I hesitate on the word profitable because a lot of people assume. I was going back and forth with somebody on Instagram today that was a waste of my time, but the discussion about ranchers are gouging everybody, which is complete ignorance, right? Complete ignorance. So at that point, the way they come at it, you just kind of, okay, this is a waste of my time. But
can't fix stupid.
No. So like I said, because he's like, well, if they're selling it, if this, how is it right for a farmer or rancher to sell their product for the same cost as Whole Foods?
Well,
because it's better than Whole Foods, first of all. And second of all, they didn't make any money if they sold it into the regular chain. They are losing. That's why we've lost 20,000 ranches every year in the last 5 years.
It's like, okay, so you got producer. The cow's right there. We know where it's coming from. You produce, you process it, you buy it from them. Might cost you a little bit more money. Healthier product. So it's sustainable. That guy's taking care of his property, his land. He knows he's going to have more later on. And when you get your hamburger, all of it is from one animal.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we know that meat showing up in grocery stores, hamburgers showing up in grocery stores, that's not, maybe not across the board, right? I'm not speaking for every pound or package of hamburger in a grocery store anywhere, but the fact that there are places where they're testing it and there's multiple species in your hamburger.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that you might want to pay the rancher what it's worth to get a healthy product that you know where it's from?
Yeah.
You know what's in it. There's no hidden stuff in there. There's no unnecessary weird vaccines and, different antibiotics. And I mean, you kind of get to choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
But it's definitely not that the ranchers and farmers are price gouging. No, they are barely getting by.
Yeah.
Because generations ago, they tried to move people off farmland. And if they had it their way, there wouldn't be any family farms there. And there would probably be no individual that owns that much land.
Yeah. Well, they're still pushing the 30 by 30 agenda 21. It's all published. It's not conspiracy. They call out their own plan. It's under this whole environmental, climate change BS. That's where they're trying to shove all this through. And that's a furtherance of the loss of property rights. I met this woman named Margaret Byfield in St. Louis. I just got back from a conference in St. Louis, and it was amazing. It was the Eagle Forum. So they had some incredible speakers. I mean, it was amazing. I felt really humbled to be on the same stage as some of the people. Dr. Peter McCullough was a speaker. Glenn Beck was the keynote speaker. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was awesome. And people from different levels of government or different levels or connections to the CIA. I mean, they had some really heavy hitting conversations they were talking about. And so Margaret was there. Her family had a ranch in Nevada that had a dispute with the federal government, same state and place that my family, the Bundy ranchers, went head to head with the government. They were in a 27-year legal battle. They won every single judgment until the last one. And on the last one, the judge decided in favor of the federal government's Department of Interior. The previous battle, they awarded the family $4.4 million. They took it to the next level and they lost everything, including their ranch after 27 years. No money, no ranch, everything was gone. And so now she has devoted her life to figuring out how to fight property rights to make sure that that doesn't keep happening. But it is still happening. You know, we had the Mod family. If you go look up Mod family ranchers, go watch what they're dealing with. They had a fence that was further over into the BLM, not by much, that was running in the BLM's ground. Now you might say, okay, well they're wrong. And on some level you might be right, but here's what you don't know. It'd been there for 75 years. Now, instead of a discussion, they showed up in full military tactical gear and raided the Mod family, husband, wife, and little babies.
Yeah, because why not? You know?
Like, are you kidding me? Show up in freaking full tactical gear for a fence line? And so, but I'm going to look up Margaret's info real quick so I can tell people.
Well, while you're doing that, I'm just going to make a comment because I feel like some people, depending on whatever side of the fence you're on, or just like what you know and what you don't know. But when it comes to like the World Economic Forum and how they have their entire blueprint, it's been right there for us to watch and look at and, you know, check the boxes as everything starts happening. It's right there. But little things that works in with that, for instance, all the water rights stuff, right? It's very, I guess, I'm not okay with it, but it's understandable how they have to deal with those types of things. And then they have to think about the future, and they have to make sure water here, and different areas of our country just don't have the same amount as other areas. But what will that do, AJ? Like, for instance, in 2030, it's the first year they're going to be taking their first wave of water away from owners. And it has everything to do with the date. It has everything to do with how old your water rights are. And getting water today is so absurd, the price. Like, my dad takes me through it because we recently acquired more water, and he's, you know, let me know like what it costs, like just like 5 years ago for this per square acre foot versus what you're paying now. It's like tens of thousands of dollars.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
But what they're going to do is that first wave happens and they're going to start taking the newer water rights. So like the most recent years.
Yeah.
And they're just going to start chipping away. So I guess the first year is 2030.
Yep.
And they're going to take a big wave. We were in a conversation with a Levitt from here, old, you know, rancher, good old boy. And they were discussing back and forth, like, hey, have you found, I've been looking for water. Have you found any? Like, this is the conversation.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out, like, how am I going to be okay come 2030? Like, are you going to lose any? My dad was like, we're going to lose a few in 2030, but then we should be good. Both of them. But then you'll be good till what's the next day? Like 2060.
Yeah.
And he goes, by then it won't be our problem. And I'm like, cool. We better figure some shit out. Because
don't leave me with this, Dad. Come on.
Battle I know nothing about.
Yeah, man. Let's answer some questions over here real quick. So first of all, somebody's asking how to get started with gardening, and there's a lot of groups out there teaching people how to grow. Out of the Wild 3D's got some great knowledge on that. He's commenting on there. I appreciate you doing that, Steve. And then, like Lazy J said, you're not ignorant. If you're interested in growing, now's the time to learn. And, you know, in fact, I was kind of just pondering this the other day. We have become so complacent because it's been so easy. But if we stop to really think about it, just really pause and think about you're alive and what's your responsibility. Food is your responsibility. Now, when it's easy and good, that's what we live in. It's been easy and good. So food responsibility hasn't had to be a priority. We've been able to worry about so many other things or waste time doing so many other things. But nobody owes you food in the market. Nobody owes that to you. If you're fighting for your sovereign rights and then think somebody owes you food in the grocery store, you're missing the connection there. That means being a sovereign individual means taking full responsibility for your life and everything that entails. And if you can get other things conveniently, great. But otherwise, you better be doing that on your own. So people should be growing. I think we're in a moment of history similar to World War II when they called for everybody to grow victory gardens. The Victory Garden was a way for people to take less pressure off the federal government to feed them, so they could put more of that energy and send food overseas to our soldiers fighting in World War II. We're there now. I mean, folks, I just don't know how to make that more clear. I mean, I'll throw the graph up again. These are our cattle numbers. This is where we're at. We are at a deficit. This is legitimately where we're sitting as a nation when it comes to our food supply chain. And so anyway, so let me jump to some more questions here.
I will make
yeah.
a note, because I don't know if we haven't talked about it, and I'm pretty sure you're probably aware of it, but talking about food supply chain, there is talk that come October 1st that our ports are going to be going on strike.
Yeah. Yes.
So I actually just had a conversation with my mom. I was like, hey, this may or may not happen. We might want to just, get some odds and ends, like things like toilet paper, but like prior to, so if shit hit the fan, or if they did go on strike, and then, things get crazy at the grocery store, we don't have to be there.
Yep.
We will have already been prepared. But it's something as simple as that. Like, it's them choosing to go on strike, I think, for many good reasons. But besides all the reasons, just the point of going on strike, like, people do that. Nurses unions, right? Like, we go on strike. Well, they have a choice, and they're, fighting for something, and that is going to really affect everybody.
Yep.
And it's something as simple as that. It's not an explosion. It's not something that can't be put back in order. They can go back to work. They can fix the problem, and then it will all get running again. But as simple as them just making a move, like a chess move as a union to create change, that's going to affect everybody.
Yep.
You know,
for sure.
It just kind of shows it's just fragile. Yeah. It's fragile because we have too much food or products or things that we need, and maybe we don't need, but at this point in our life, families and people have become very accustomed to certain things. And outside of those foods or that equipment or whatever it is, they may not have any idea what they're going to do. And the second it's disrupted, it's going to feel very, speaking for myself, it can feel so out of control, and like you do not know what to do, and you don't know what your next move is. And so fighting for sovereignty, and for us fighting for food sovereignty and being able to know where your food comes from, know the person where you get it from. There is no multiple middlemen. You don't need, if there's a strike, it's like, not a big deal.
Yep. That's right.
That's
right.
Larry 15 miles away. Yeah. You just call Larry and be like, hey man, we still good? He's like, yep.
and by the way, if it gets bad enough, Larry needs to know you're there with your Second Amendment to help him protect your food supply chain.
100%.
Here's a question that just came in. How easy is it to become a producer? Let me see, folks. I'm going to try something here, and I hope I don't break it. Let's see. I'm just reading the instructions real quick. Okay, here we go. I am going to share what I think is our From the Farm website. Oh, look at that. Can y'all see that? Brooke, you want to confirm you can see my map?
I can see it.
Okay.
Yep.
So question is, how easy is it to become a producer on From the Farm? We put a lot of effort and energy into that because we know farmers, we know ranchers, we know the challenge and how difficult that is. And so we put a lot of energy into, what does that look like? So I tried to design this layout and the setup in a way that's as easy as setting up a Facebook page. Now, the most challenging part is going to be putting in your the details of your offerings, your product offerings. So to kind of show you what that looks like, I'm going to pick on some of our friends that just came on, an unlikely duo of farming and ranching that people maybe don't know. Rhonda Rousey and Travis Brown have a ranch in Southeast Oregon. And a lot of people didn't know that those UFC champions were into ranching now, and specifically regenerative ranching. But you come onto the platform, you can find any producer that you would like. You put your zip code in, and it'll first populate who's closest around you. You can zoom out of the map because we are growing. So we're bringing people on, and you can kind of shop around and get a little quick glimpse of what they, who the family is. We wanted to feature and teach you about the family first and the product second. So let's go back to the Rouseys, or the Browsey Acres, Browsey Ranch. You go on this home first product page, and now this is what they have for sale. Just like any e-commerce platform, you can fill your cart and send it on. Now we're specifically talking about producers and how to get on board. So when you come onto this page, you go to become a producer. Now this will be changing soon, and it'll have more details. You just hit become a producer and follow the prompts. It's really that simple. We have staff to support you. And we have staff that you can hire if you want them to do all the heavy lifting. If you want to send over, your product inventory and so forth, that they can do that for you. Our staff will be, as we hire staff, they're going to be farm kids that we want to keep on the farm, and farm moms that are currently working off farm. We want to find a way for them to get back on farm. And so they will be the ones helping on customer service, and both setting up the producer and any other customer service needs that are there. So that's how easy it is to become a producer. Now, the simplicity of becoming a consumer is building out your page, signing in, having your location, and then you can either go to there, or it's going to automatically show you the farms closest to you here. And so you can see that there. Top farms in your zip code, most popular farms, and so forth. And so let's say we just go back to the map. I like the map view personally.
I love it.
We built it, so it's exciting to see more and more people coming on board. So let me pick on somebody else. Let's go to Three Sons Ranch. Go into Three Sons Ranch. Look for their product offering. He's selling quarter halves and wholes primarily, but he also has a dinner box. The dinner box is 30 pounds. If I want to add that to my cart, I can add to cart. It's not going to let me finish it because I'm not signed in currently. But now my cart is populated. If that producer has a discount, you can put that in, proceed to checkout. It'll calculate shipping, and you're good to go. It's that simple to be a customer. So maybe just to back up real quick, the three things that we're looking for: be an investor. That's why we have the ticker on the bottom. Our goal is to raise $5 million crowdfund. The reason for that is we're committed that we're never selling. We all believe that we are doing something that God has called us to. And in that calling, it was also made clear that it can't be for sale. Because if we build a platform and the farmers and ranchers trust us and the consumers trust us, we can't risk a big food company swinging by and dropping $1 billion into a bank account and telling us to walk away. We are not in this for the money. We're in this because when we're on our deathbeds, we want to see our kids being taken care of by family farms and ranches. And so investing is one. You can invest as little as $100. And the way the investment is laid out, just since we're on the topic, if you're interested, shoot us a message, a direct message, and we can email you this so you can maybe browse through it slower. But $100 minimum. We are going to pay for the first 250,000 raised. It's a 2.5x return. Anything after 250, it's 2x return. We will pay that at 15% of the net revenue annually. Now, that means your return comes as fast as we grow. And so we're also looking for the consumer to collaborate with us to build this new marketplace. Like I said a minute ago, we cannot compete dollar for dollar. It has to be through collaboration. Imagine all of these people around America sending people to From the Farm to buy local. That's how we do it, because we don't need to be relying on the current media sources to market. We are shadow banned by certain platforms. They don't like what we're doing, and they don't like sometimes what we're saying. And so we get shadow banned. So it has to be done in many other ways. The $5 million, just so you guys know, our use of funds, bringing on more staff, helping us travel the country to get more producers on across the nation. The number one comment we get is, there's nobody in my area. We know. Trust me, we know. You're the 100,000th person that's told us. I did not use my words there. That was a Joe Biden moment. But we get so many people telling us there's nobody by us. We know. We're working on it. Because we're not going and raising $100 million in venture capital to build this quickly, it does take a little time. So another way you can help us is by sending your local farmers and ranchers to us. Share what we're doing. We have almost 100% sign up when they come to us because they were referred. I know that when I call them cold call, I'm basically calling one of my uncles, and I know what they're thinking on the other end, which is, I don't know this number. What are you trying to sell me? I've heard that a million times and you're not here to help. Folks, we built this because I went through a lot of those programs that the producers have been sold and they don't work. They might work in one sense, but there's still a lot of things missing in between to make it work as well as it needs to. So sharing with your farmers and ranchers, sharing our message is another way. Just sharing the content, that video we put out, share that with your friends and family, your sphere of influence, help them see what we're up to. And then the last thing is to, and most important, buy on From the Farm. If we don't have anybody near you yet, many of the producers will ship. Many of our producers on there will ship. And in fact, you won't be able to buy from anybody who doesn't ship. The system is designed that way where you can't purchase if they're not capable of shipping to you. And so if you buy from those farmers and ranchers, you are helping. These guys are there. We told them, listen, we're like Uber. We had to have drivers before we had riders. So jump on board, be super patient with us as we build this thing. And we will then go and do the work to bring the producers and that's what or the consumers. And that's what we've been doing. So just be patient with us. But buying on From the Farm is what helps show the efficacy and the value of what we're doing. And it builds that momentum. So if you don't have the money to invest because you need to buy food, then just go on From the Farm and buy your food. That's as good as any investment. You're buying right from those farmers and ranchers and helping us gain that momentum. So, we had a bunch of comments come in. I guess they took a second to come through, but,
well, and I think that you can see more than I can.
Oh, okay.
Just so you know.
On the right-hand side, Brooke, if you see comments, I don't know if you
I'm
see
on
that.
there.
Oh,
I'm on here, but it also tells me that some destinations won't get comments.
Gotcha.
So I don't know if because you're logged into all the different facets on your side and I'm not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're like, hey, Brooke, read me a question, I'll be like,
Yeah.
AJ, you read
it. Yeah. Perfect. Yep. That's good. And by the way, just real quick, the broadcast will end on Instagram at the top of the hour. They only allow a 1 hour live. So you can go to our Facebook page, LinkedIn, or my X account or YouTube and continue to watch there as we keep going through this. Cause I don't know if I can figure out how to add Instagram back on while it kills off. So, and also for those of you asking questions, there's a lot of questions both here and on Instagram. I just want to again say thanks to Steve at Out of the Wild 3D and Lazy J for keeping up with those comments. You guys are doing great. Steve said food will be the new gold, and I agree. I think if you have the opportunity to start growing food, that could be one of the most valuable investments of your time, because there's just not a whole lot. This is why I came on here to hear what you have to say about Tuesday. I'm not sure. Oh, Tuesday, probably the strike. Yeah. If that strike happens, I hope y'all have toilet paper because you know how that all went last time around.
Not great.
It's going to be worse than toilet paper this time though. Let me just scroll through real quick and see if I can catch up. Man, lots of great questions and we're just behind. You know, one of the other challenges too, well, let me just pull this up here. Let me jump into this topic. So we're going to get into the climate change discussion real briefly because everybody hears about cows being the problem and we got to cull our cow herds. This graphic shows you food miles by transport method. That what you're seeing, 58%, almost 59% of our food travels by water. I read somewhere a long time ago that one super tanker on the ocean is equal to 45,000 cars on the highway. Now, you can fact check me if I'm wrong. I'll update my knowledge. I looked at that statistic a while ago, so maybe new technologies on boats have come along and they're all floating through the water on nuclear energy, but I doubt it. But the reason I'm sharing this, 30% by road, the reason I'm sharing this is the conversation is skewed. It's not the cow, it's the how. It's the global food supply chain that is the cause for emissions, but they're not going to talk about that. They're just going to call out ag as a whole because it doesn't help their agenda when they talk about the real problem, which is the supply chain. The supply chain is the issue. If we hyper localize, we reduce food miles. You saw in that video the claims of the distance food travels and how we can reduce that if we grow locally and raise locally. And so this whole conversation that cows are the problem is exactly the opposite. Livestock, ruminating animals are actually the only solution to what's being blamed on or described as climate change. Let me just kind of pare that down a little bit more. What we're talking about is desertification. Desertification is a real measurable issue, but desertification is caused by poor policies by the people in charge. So for example, in the West, where it's more desertified than anywhere else, the majority of the land mass in the West is controlled by the Department of the Interior, Bureau of Land Management, National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service. Those agencies control our land, and then they give the rancher what's called a grazing rights. The rancher owns the grazing rights. Those are pretty much, if you own a grazing right, it's as good as owning the land, but you don't own the land. You just own the right to graze on it, right? So I'm just trying to draw a comparison about how solid that arrangement is supposed to be, which is why we have these land grab challenges like what Margaret went through, what the Bundys went through, what the Mod family's going through, and many more. Well, they determine in many areas that you can only have one cow-calf pair per 100 acres. Now, when you understand the value of the rumen, the manure from a cow's gut is what puts biology back into the soil in desertifying areas, you can start seeing why we're having massive wildfires and overgrowth in the West and drought. You know, you can find all this information if you go look for it, but I saw there's many videos out there where they'll have a heat gun, like a laser thermometer, and they'll point it to bare soil, and it's like 150 degrees, just cooking. They'll move it just over a little bit to a patch of grass, and it's like 80 degrees. So when you have these massive open areas of desert that's bare soil, it's radiating heat off of the ground, and that's disrupting our natural water cycles. If we put more rumen back on the soil, which gives more soil biology, which then increases the grass growing, you increase what's called, as soon as I went to say it, evapotranspiration. If you ever have gone on a walk and it's really hot in your neighborhood, and then you walk past a park and it's grass on both sides and you instantly feel it's cooler, that's called evapotranspiration. The grass is sweating. It's releasing moisture, which is causing this cooling effect, which also the more grass you have in a large area creates a local water cycle. Those local water cycles are broken. And so when you say you can only have one cow-calf per 100 acres and it's that manure that revitalizes the soil, good luck, which is why we have desertification. And so we need more ruminating animals, which will feed more people, which will balance the food prices, because now we have more supply and demand, right? Increase supply, reduce the demand, but still have enough for your local farmers and ranchers. Like we have an abundance. That's the biggest thing we're trying to say, right? To our producers, there's an abundance. There are 320 million people to feed. Yep. We don't even have enough food growing in America to feed 320 million people. So instead of saying my beef is better than, or we're better than, just say, this is who we are and how we do it. And you're going to find the people that respond to that. And so I think that's important too, but desertification is the problem. It's not caused by cows. It's caused by how we get our food. It's not the cow, it's the how. And it's actually the cow and the goat and the deer and the elk and the bison, all of those ruminating animals that will change that around. But we have to increase local demand for American beef. We also have to let you know that it is American and not something else.
Yeah.
So I went on a rant there. Brooke, do you have anything to add to that?
I liked it. I was deep in it.
Perfect. Let's see. Go ahead and keep asking questions. If you asked a question and we missed it, ask again. Let me just throw this up for fun.
I saw that.
I don't think that's actually President Trump, but I do want to say,
thank you, sir.
Yeah, I do want to say how much hope I had when RFK joined Trump. And let me just explain a little bit why I believe that. 'Cause somebody asked me, "Oh, really? Why?" Because
Oh,
we know people behind the scenes that are personally connected with RFK. And these are people who absolutely know what we just talked about, desertification. So RFK isn't aware of the solution from a 50,000 foot view. He's actually spent time to really fully understand the significance of small family farms and ranches and the role they play in our food sovereignty, food supply chain, and most importantly, the health of the American people. He gets it from a deeper level than just a talking point. That's why I was excited to see him join the Trump campaign, because he's actually somebody that knows how and can make a difference if he gets in the right position to do so. And I fully believe that he will do it.
it actually, it's when that happened, all I thought, it was like, well, we're going to fix everything now.
Yeah.
Like,
So
is not everyone on board now?
yeah. So you're saying there's a chance.
Like, really? Like, I really thought to myself, like, well, that now it should just be, game over.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
who cannot be for that? Like,
Yep.
who actually is so stuck in their ways? This is a fake question, because we know a lot of people,
Yep.
clearly.
Yep.
But so stuck in your ways and wanting to die on a hill and hate being wrong, and you will not accept when you learn something new, or that you're doing something that actually, hindsight, is terrible. But hey, here's how I'm going to fix it. I mean, RFK, everything that he wants to do, everything that he has done for agricultural, I don't know, properties and issues through years and years and years. He's just been fighting the good fight of trying to, like, better our harbors,
Yeah.
our water, our fresh water. You know,
Yeah.
if you know somebody who still thinks they're going to vote for Kamala, like, the second RFK joined Trump's campaign, I almost thought, like, it's too easy now. Because in my mind, it was like, oh, everybody can agree with RFK. Like, who's gonna deny the truths that have been out, but are out and in our face right now, with the data that for years they've been hiding and pretending wasn't real, but it is real. And it's those that don't want to accept responsibility, don't want to say I was wrong. It's really uncomfortable to be wrong.
Yep.
But we're not all right all the time. It's like a conversation with my nephew of, like, understanding that as you grow, you have to learn. With my little 6-year-old nephew, like, Jax, when you're a baby, you don't know anything. You're a baby.
Yeah.
You don't know how to talk, nothing. You learn all these things from mirroring. You learn from your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters. You learn how to ride a bike. You learn how to shoot a basketball. You didn't know how to do that before, but then you learn how. And when you're doing it, you mess up a lot and you fail a lot. But then you continue to learn and you get better at it. And now you have that information in your pocket, and you have a new skill. You know all these new things. We only know what we know.
Yeah.
Like, that reality in and of itself, I feel like, should be a good enough reason for you to be like, you know what? I was wrong.
Yep.
I wish that I would have known this sooner, or that I would have listened sooner, or I would have read that data sooner, or whatever it is. But the reality is I didn't. But now I'm not going to make that mistake again. Instead of being like, nope, you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, let's not point fingers. And I think that everyone should be able to get behind RFK and his motives, and for make America healthy again, to fix our food system, to fix our pharmaceutical and health insurance beast of a nightmare, you know?
My thought was always, before RFK joined Trump, I'm like, okay, first priority is not getting nuked. Like, everything RFK is doing is actually our major focus. but
Yep.
none of that matters if nukes start flying. So
Yeah.
I always felt like we needed Trump to fix foreign policy.
Yes.
And I'm like, dude, Trump for the next 4, RFK for the next 8. Like, that's where I was at. And then RFK threw his hat in the ring, and I'm like, okay, now we got Trump to work on foreign policy while simultaneously RFK can help fix American policy with big corporations like big food and big pharma.
You know, a very simple example of that is what we talked about earlier about why we have, you know, over almost 200 producers that are halfway through setting up their profiles. It's because they had to, what is the most important thing in order to have the operation that they have? What is the most important things they have to get done before they do something else that matters a lot and will do a lot of good for them and do a lot of good for their operation? But first, they have to make sure they even are able to still have a farm or a ranch. And if I don't get these things done first, I may not have that, right? It's the exact same thing. People that really, really, really hate Trump. It's okay. You don't have to like the person. You just need to know that the person's going to move the needle in the right direction versus the wrong direction.
Yep. Right.
And at least you see, and I was listening to, I don't remember which podcast it was, but it was Trump was talking about the comparison of his first 4 years. And he says he did not know, like he's not like a guy who's like going into politics, right? Like there's a game. I don't know it and I don't want to know it. You took US government in college, and that's the day I learned, like, oh boy. Like it's a game. Like that's a career choice, and then you learn how to play the game. He talked to people, got advice, work with this person. He did that. A lot of the people that he put in positions, it wasn't because that's the kind of person he is.
Yep.
It's because that was the information that was given to him. And what he has now is so much more information.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it. You're seeing it with Tulsi Gabbard. You're seeing it with Elon Musk. You're seeing it with RFK. I mean, he is bringing people in to solve some real issues.
Yeah.
And he said he's no longer needs to rely on just people within, DC or that are in that whole world, I guess, for advice on like who would be good for this position or who would be good for this position. He doesn't need that anymore.
Yep.
It's like now he can actually get in and do work. And we're seeing him put people in his cabinet or on his team that, I mean, RFK, game over.
Yep. Yep. Let's answer this question here. Is there room for small meat processing facilities in your network? I'm located in Central Virginia. That's a great question. The answer is yes, absolutely. We already have 3 or 4 small meat processors on the platform right now. I ran a small USDA slaughterhouse during my 3.5 years of research and development. Was not on the radar. And if you would have told me that in 2020, that was part of the process, I would have quit. God doesn't tell us everything we're going to go through on purpose. Some of us would say, yeah, just not going to get born. Let me just skip that. So, having run the small slaughterhouse, it definitely opened my eyes to the challenges that our small meat processors are facing, which is when I was charging the ranchers, you have what's called a kill fee, and then you have a cut and wrap fee. And they're pretty much set, right? Your kill fee might be $50 all the way up to $100, depending on where you live. And your cut and wrap can be anywhere from 75 cents a pound, which is way too low. That's usually an old timer that's still running it and doesn't want to make change. But as soon as his son takes over or somebody else, it's going up because it needs to, all the way up to about $1.25 a pound, or maybe even more, depending on where you're at. The fact is that's not enough to run and keep open a small meat processor. And so small slaughterhouses need to partner with local farms and ranches that just have zero desire to do the direct side, partner with them, utilize their beef, and sell a white label, a label from their facility to the customer. So if that's you, you in Virginia, I don't know how to say your name. If that's you, then do you want to attempt that? If that's you, then we definitely have a place for you.
I could attempt it.
One more time.
I don't think you want me to
No.
attempt it.
No.
I feel like one of those letters is silent, and I'm not going to know which one it is.
Yeah. Let me play another video for everybody.
America. Today, that number has plummeted. In 1930, there were 6 million farms in America. Today, that number has plummeted to 1.8 million. And now 85% of the beef in America is controlled by just 4 companies. That means fewer farmers have to produce more food, thus incentivizing them to produce a high quantity of food instead of high quality food. Plus, if something goes wrong, the 98% of us that don't grow food are at risk of starving. Yikes, that's dark. Let's go darker. A few very wealthy companies have control over all the food. And if North Korea has taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. The bottom line is this: you can't wait until hits the fan to figure out what your family's going to eat, but all hope is not lost. Here's the plan. It's called From the Farm, an industry-disrupting platform that directly connects customers and local farmers with a website that's as easy to use as Airbnb. From the Farm gives you fresher, higher quality foods, strengthens communities, and helps small farmers not only survive, but thrive. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision. It's an investment into our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.
Gosh dang.
Such a good video.
Brooke, how awesome is it that we got to work with Harmon Brothers? For those of you who don't know, our content was created by Harmon Brothers. They did the crowdfunding for The Chosen and The Sound of Freedom, and we just knew morally and ethically and all things above they were the right people for us, and they just did a great job. I love it.
They are fantastic to work with.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. The small meat processor commented, said, yes, I plan to do exactly what you describe. Shoot me a message. If I can help you out in any way, I'd love to see what I could do to help you on that.
Yeah, that's actually a concept that AJ and I have worked on and have talked about a lot, because through the different, variations, just changes that we have made from the first conversation we ever had in 2020, there's so many things that we can do. And the best way to facilitate it is by the community coming together and sort of creating that space. And I think that would be very impactful in your community and in your area, to be able to be the processor, and you go and help facilitate with all those producers around you that have, maybe they're selling. Like we have family friends here in Southern Utah that they don't go direct. They don't sell. They'll do sell on the hoof. They'll do a half whole, even rarely really wants to do a quarter, because it becomes quite the headache when it comes to packaging and cut sheets for people like that. But to be able to just go straight to the producer, they don't have to worry about selling or finding a seller or trucking or whatever it is. They've just got to trailer them to your place, drop them off, and then you sell it for them.
Yep.
It's a win-win for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody commented on our Instagram, Chef Actual. We are 80 cents a pound. I would love to know if that's working for you, because that's incredible if you can offer it at that price. If it's not working for you, then hopefully maybe we can help you out.
And for anyone who's watching who's like, well, that sounds fantastic, and they don't know why more people don't do it at 80 cents a pound, how a producer, a rancher farmer, how they come up with that number, it's not because they're just like, this sounds good, or I want to make a bunch of money, and so this sounds good. No, it is going through carefully all of your expenses for that animal. It is what it costs to buy it, if you're buying yearlings, or if you're cow calving, like all of the inputs in order to get that cow ready to be slaughtered, and then your cost of kill fee, your cost of packaging, et cetera, et cetera. It's all of that added up. And then most of the time they're making barely anything, because there's this fear of, if they price it too high, or like what it's really worth, or price it in a way where they can make like a few dollars after cost.
Yeah.
A lot of people are too nervous that it will turn people off because of what that number is. But the reality is it's not picking just some random number or it coming from a place of greed. No, it is coming from a place of, this is all the money that I spent. This is everything that it takes to get that calf ready to be slaughtered. And you have to sort of I feel pretty confident saying most family owned or small farms and ranches are barely covering their cost.
Yep. You can find it. It's easy to find the data on that. If somebody wanted to know what they're actually making, the average producer is making $4,000 a year. The average producer family on farm makes $4,000 a year. That's what, after all expenses, that's what they walk away with. Let me share this too, since we're on the topic. Percentage of acres operated other than by non-family. So less than 2% of all operations are non-family. So consider that. Less than 2%. That means the majority of them are small family. And yet they're only making that amount of money, because that means the other 2% are massive. They're massive operations, because that's what's running the majority of the revenue through agriculture in our country, are big family, big corporate farms. And so if 2% is doing the majority of that revenue, that's exactly the break. That's what we've got to fix. So,
I also want to know maybe where they're located.
The small family farms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no. The question.
Oh, the producer.
Or the comment.
Yeah.
Yes. Because that's the thing that you think about too. It's like, well, where are you located? Like, for instance, in Utah, me and AJ have talked about what are different ways what can we do to help facilitate dropping feed price, because we can increase the amount needed to actually help people out here finish out their herd. So then the price will actually go down on extra things that they would need to buy, whether that's molasses, whether that's a grain, or however you choose to fit, whatever your finishing protocol is. But a lot of the time too, it's how much quantity of that is coming into your area. If you're not getting a lot, if they're not trucking a ton in, it's a hot commodity. It's going to be harder to get. It's going to be more expensive to get. And so being able to live in an area where it's a lot easier to come by, that will help with overall cost. You will then be able to cut costs down for certain products or for certain items, because you are not having to spend as much money putting it in.
Yep.
So I know that like is very logical and realistic, but for some reason, I feel like some people need that reminder of like the actual reality of what it looks like for many people.
Yeah. We're about to wrap up, folks. If you have any last questions, we scheduled this till 7:30 our time, so about 10 minutes away. If you have any last questions,
here's just the one that's kind of talking about is there a download option of all producers in case we happen to lose access to the web?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So that is a possibility, right? So we that's why this is where one of the things we're doing different than what maybe traditional business might tell you to do or promote. When you buy on From the Farm, we're giving you all the contact information you need for your farmer and rancher. And then we ask, as a point of respect and support, stay purchasing on From the Farm's platform. Because like we said in the beginning, for those who've just joined us, we looked at the average rancher makes about, now listen, first of all, I know we're talking a lot about meat. That's a world that we know better. We also have the ability for produce and dairy and grain on the platform. But we're learning more as we go about that. So a lot of our data comes from that. I will tell you that doing this and moving into the other farmed products, we've recognized that produce was captured a long time ago. produce is really hard to find in quantity at a local level. It's happening. Lots of people are getting into it. And we hope that From the Farm will make that process easier so more people can become growers. So I just want to say that right off. And while I did that, I lost my train of thought, but I'm pretty sure as I ramble, it'll come back. So so the producer only gets about 14 cents on the dollar. We're specifically talking about the beef space. So we said, what if we could build a platform that flips it on its head? We help them with the marketing. We learn how to help them better with logistics, but by and large, we bring the customers to a central platform where they can connect with their local farmers and ranchers, or as close to local as possible as we grow. And how do we do it to where we flip that on its head? So we only do a 15% commission for our free sellers. We have a tiered system. Nobody's paying for that yet. We're not big enough to offer that. But for those interested in investing, there are multiple revenue streams attached to here, but all with making sure that the producer is respected and the bottom line goes to them. Where we intend to make the majority of our revenues through affiliate partners. We've already got quite a few that are starting to sign up. So as we develop our platform, there will be a From the Farm marketplace with things that complement food or complement the production of food. It could be seeds. It could be feed to fatten cattle. It could be knives and cutting boards and seasonings and so forth. Margins are better on most of those items than it is on beef. So we figured, why not build a platform where the money earned on the platform for the transaction of food goes into growing it further, so we have more consumers to buy from our producers. And then we will monetize through other sources. So when the producer signs up and a sale happens, we take a small commission. That commission goes right back into growing the platform and bringing in more marketing. And that's our initiative, because if we can build this platform truly designed to serve the producer and the consumer first, then we truly have built a marketplace that exists the way it should. That the farmers come first, the consumers are second, and the company, us, is last. That puts us in a position where we are highly focused on improving our service to our producers and the consumers, because that's the only way we win. And so we are designed for that. So back to the conversation of buying. If you connect with your farmer and rancher and then do business on the side, you're essentially hamstringing us from growing. But we also realize that we live in a really interesting time. So your ability to know who your farmer and rancher is and where they're located or how to meet up with them is crucial. Because if there's a disruption, you hopefully wrote it down on a scratch paper somewhere. This is how I'm going to find them if it goes bad. But in the meantime, we're going to play the game to help make sure that it exists if things are go in the favor of America in November. So,
and we would also recommend too, like if you have found your rancher, your farmer already, that's a conversation with them too. Like, hey, if something were to happen, how can we stay in touch? Or you basically can create a plan with them.
Yeah.
You know, because we don't manage everyone's operation. We don't manage any of that. We will continue to do whatever we can to help. But in terms of that sort of connection, that safety net that you want to create and have for yourself, like a just in case, we help you connect with that rancher, that farmer, and then you have that relationship with them to create a system, or even maybe offer help to them of like, what can I do if this were to happen, if that were to happen, right? It's a community.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
And if you're trying to survive, you want a good community. You ain't surviving on your own.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, if you're prepared and your neighbors are not, you're not prepared. So unless you live in a cave, and then maybe you're all right. Somebody said, so what are farmers in the U.S. saying, or what do they need to survive? The common phrase that kept coming up over and over and over again was a competitive marketplace. The existing marketplace for them now is to go to auction, unless they build their own direct to consumer. But it's go to auction, and the auction prices are manipulated through varying degrees by the big corporations and other factors too, of course. But that's how that works. And there's usually an 8 to 10 year swing, meaning the bottom will drop out, and then over the next 8 to 10 years, it'll slowly increase. And then around 8 to 10 years, there's an adjustment, and usually it's the buying game of the big guys, and it'll drop out again. Right now, producers are making a windfall because there's so few cattle. There's a big competition around amongst all cattle buyers for inventory because the numbers are so low, which is why imports have skyrocketed in the last little bit because actually I have a graph for that because of the low cattle numbers. So what you're seeing here is the imports of beef in 2024 from 2023 to 2024. It's a billion, 1.5 billion pounds in 2023, 1.8 billion in 2024. If we cross-reference that with exports was only 1.3 in 2023. So just to go back here versus 1.5. So we're bringing in more than we're sending out, which means you're eating more foreign beef than you realize. And then you look at the export volume for 2024, 1.25 billion. If I have that right, you guys are better numbers guys than that, but you see that versus what we've imported, 1.8 billion. So you are primarily eating foreign beef. And this is where it kind of gets interesting because I also read, they always talk about fake news, fake media, blah, 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 whatever that is, right? Bad information. Well, the USDA also puts out that we're exporting 10% and importing 10%, roughly. But this is what don't make sense. How is that possible when those are our cattle numbers? So you're saying that what, 80% or 90%, 80, 90% of the beef here that was sold here is from here? I'm not a statistician. Is that what you call them? Somebody that runs data and figures all that out. If somebody is listening to this, I would love for you to dive in and help us on this, but that doesn't match up to me. We've got 87 million head of cattle total. So I think what's happening, and this is just an assumption, I'm totally prepared to be wrong. They're importing large volumes of calves. And then because they brought in as a calf, just like if you send a half of beef over from another country and then further process it here, you can label it product of USA. I think what's happening is they're importing all these calves and then claiming it's American beef, but it never transfers to the independent producers. It goes to the big corporations. I'm just trying to figure this out. If somebody else want to jump in on this, you're more than welcome to prove me wrong there, but that's what I see. Okay, there's another comment here. We were actually on the topic. What are they saying? Competitive marketplace. So the idea, the vision of From the Farm is the competitive marketplace. The producer builds a store, it's their store. We just house the software so they can run commerce. And then we bring millions of consumers to From the Farm. Now you have a competitive marketplace. And because we're never selling, I can't state that enough, we are not going to sell. Every decision we make is going to be to ensure that Brooke and I have control of the decisions of the company. We may sell equity to grow, but we will never sell our control over how things are developed. That's so that we can ensure this is developed for the producers so that they can make a strong comeback. And not just the producers that are trying to survive the family legacies, but we have to build a path for new producers to come in. We've got to get back up from 1.8 million. If we sustain a broken system, we still have a broken system. So we can't just sustain a broken system. We have to design a way forward to improve that. So yeah, the number one thing we hear is they need a competitive marketplace. Your question also went into about nutrient density and quality of food. That gets into what we were talking about earlier with ruminating animals being the ones to fertilize the ground versus chemical inputs. Now, we are realists. We have 320 million people to feed. The existing system that we have is the only thing that's keeping us fed. So we don't believe that we should turn it off tomorrow and start over. That means famine, and we don't want to see that. So we need to slowly transition. We need to start the process of transition because, folks, it still takes a season to grow produce, and it still takes 24 months at least to grow a cow. So even if everybody said, we're all in, and we turned this thing on and went for it, it's still going to take time. It takes at least 5 years to start seeing the benefits of regenerative agriculture or holistic management on your land before your soils recover from the chemicals that have been used. So this is a process. We need the existing system we have. People still need to the faster you wake up to your health and the nutrient density in the food, the better off you'll be. But it's going to be a long process. That's just, there's no way around it. So let's see. Yes. So the person on Instagram, chef_actual, that's SHEFF_actual. Hope you're okay with me putting that out there, but you've had some great questions. One of the things he says, you can't sell butchering your own direct to consumer, has to be inspected unless y'all's rules are different where you're at. Rules are different in different states, but there are 3 primary levels of processing. You've got USDA, that's federally inspected. Once it's packaged, you can sell it across state lines. It's an easier process for producers because it moves a lot of the stuff out of the way, but there are also not very many USDA slaughterhouses in our entire country. There's less than 10,000 inspected facilities. That's both state and USDA at the small level. Okay, so USDA is one. Then you have what's called state inspected. State inspected means if I own a slaughterhouse and it's state inspected, I can process an animal and sell it to you already processed as long as you are in the state. I can't sell it across state lines. And then the last one is called custom processing or custom exempt. Custom exempt I could go and shoot it in your backyard, pull it into my trailer, process it in the trailer, and give it back to you as long as you bought the animal and your name is on that brand inspection before that process happens. So that's called buying a cow share. And so yeah, those are the 3 different levels. So depending on what your process is, Chef, I get it, which is also why we're putting a lot of energy and effort into developing our platform to simplify the selling of live animals on the hoof. So the customer can buy it on the share program. They call it a cow share. So the customer can buy cow shares easier, track the paperwork essentially that they own it, and then you can get it processed however you need. There's really a 4th method, and the 4th method is you better damn well learn how to process a beef because you may need to. So that's the 4th method. Let's see. And you're right, because he also said the push for this is great, but the bottleneck is processing. And you're right, which is why as we grow, if we have the revenue to help, we will deploy small processors. We'll partner with locals and help build small processors where they're needed. You seen a comment coming in?
Yes. Her name, it's Seku.
Oh, yeah, got it. She messaged you and told you how to say
Yeah,
it.
I saw it. The like phonetic spelling. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I see that there. Yeah, perfect.
What's funny is I was going to say that.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
It would have been a better guess than me. Let's see. Well, listen, folks, I told you we'd be done at 7:30. We went way past, so you're welcome to contact us. Keep the messages coming in. We'll answer them as much as we can. I want to play that primary video one more time as we close out for those that might have got in here late. So we will go ahead and play that, and we'll end it right there. Brooke, any final words for everybody that stayed on to support and comment?
We can't do it without you.
Yeah.
You know, we've been working on this for a really long time. It is a passion project. It is something that we have we've encountered very difficult things that for sure more than once we've thought to ourselves like, man, what do we do? Like, do we keep going? Because if we keep going, it's so unknown, like it really so unknown. So a long time ago, we decided to have the awareness to like kind of see how certain things were coming together. And then the discernment to understand like we care about this. It's very hard. It's very unknown, but it's very important. And there's no way these things are coming together the way they are, no matter the length of time in between them, that it is something that we are supposed to do. It is something that we are meant to do. And we're very passionate about it. And it has nothing to do with ourselves. It has everything to do with the people. Hence, we the people, right? Feed the people, buy the people. That is something a long time ago that we started saying back and forth together. And it's because that is what it is. And so with that being said, we cannot do it by ourselves. This is not a selfish business. This is something that we got to come together. And so if anything, I ask that you share that with your community and with people around you. And if you know producers, and it really comes down to the question, like, how bad do we want it? How bad do we want change? How bad do we want to be healthy? Or how bad do we want to have all the things out of our food system? How bad do we want it? Because nothing important or worth celebrating was just handed to you, was just easy. And I think that it's really easy to become almost maybe overwhelmed, or I guess that's the best word, like overwhelmed with so many problems, right? Like there's so many things to fix. And when that happens, I think a very human and a pretty normal response for a lot of people is like, we just go, man, I'm awake. I see what's happening. I hope that guy fixes it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
I wish I could say there's nothing wrong with that. I've definitely been there so many times, but the truth is somebody has to start. Somebody has to do it. And if we've learned anything about the federal government, it's that most of them are extremely unqualified to flip burgers at a hamburger joint, like unqualified to take care of people.
Yeah.
They really, really are. And their knowledge outside of their own foreign affairs that have literally nothing to do with any of us, but it affects all of us.
Yep.
That's what they know. That's not how you fix problems. That's not how you take care of people. That's not how you grow food. That's not how you store food. That's not how you plan for a disaster. That's not how you do any of that shit.
Yep.
Like we the people have to fix it. We know more than they do because we're living it. We've watched our families live through it, our parents, our grandparents. We've watched the changes. We've listened. We've lived through the struggles. We dealt with all of the struggles, the financial, the housing, you name it. Yep. There's no one better to fix these problems, like not big picture problems, right? But like very actionable problems than us. And we know that, and we believe in that, and we also know that we cannot do it without you. So what we hope more than anything is that we can really continue to create and foster a community of people who also see that together we will solve some problems. Together we will protect our ranchers. Together we will protect our kids. Yep. And stop waiting for someone else to do it, because they ain't coming. No one's coming to save you. We have to strap up our boots and get to work. And if it's like a few of us, way easier to just like, they're not a problem. If it's all of us, way harder.
Way harder.
Way
and that's
harder
what it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to be that. We cannot do this alone. We're not shy about saying that. We're doing it different than, because different has to be. It's got to be done different, because what we have now doesn't work. So before we play this video and lead out, want to just remind you, ways to get involved. Share the content, share our videos, especially this video I'm about to play. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Instagram. You can find it on X. Everywhere that we're at, you can find the video and share it. The second thing is buy on From the Farm, from the producers that are there. Even if they ship it to you, start supporting the people who are there, and that will help build the momentum. That's our biggest goal, is to be the marketing for our producers so that they can spend more time growing food and less time. What's up, everybody? I'm at the farm. That's a lot of them like doing that, and they'll keep doing it. But when they have to do it because it's the only way to reach, it's not easy. The next thing you can do is invest with us. Invest on our WeFunder platform. That's the link scrolling at the bottom. $100, even if that's all you got, that's huge. We're just over $70,000, $75,000, and we're grateful for every single investment that came in, the $100 to the $10,000. And we just can't do it without you. And that's how this is going to work. And And then last, if you want to buy any of our merch, we do have a few hats and shirts that are being made, and that's always helpful. And that's if you go to FromTheFarm.org and in the search bar, look up From the Farm, and you can find merch there. So with that, we'll play.
I will just add one last thing.
Yeah.
If you know anyone who has a stand at a farmer's market, and maybe it's not for food, maybe it's for cutting boards, maybe it's for you make your own beef tallow. I do. Yep. Maybe it's for, you make cooking utensils, whatever it is. Like, we want you.
Yeah.
We want you.
Yeah.
So,
by the way, Brooks Tallow is her number one customer is Carrie Underwood. I want to brag on you for that.
She's not my customer.
Oh, just
I did make her some tallow. And what's so funny, I keep my house pretty cold. And I had been starting to really stress and worry because I have like the same ones that I made for her, which a few different ones. I have them here for me too. And every time I went to use them, they just seemed like they were just a little bit too hard. And so I started to sort of stress, because it's Carrie Underwood, about like, I think I probably should have added a little bit more of this. So it was more of a, softer, it wasn't so solid at room temperature. And so I messaged her and I was like, hey, sorry about that. If you want, you can always melt it down, add this in, and it should make it a little bit more like spreadable, like easier. And she was like, I think it's great. And then I thought, maybe it's because I have it at 65 degrees in here. Maybe it's just a little more solid because it's cold.
Yeah, totally. That's funny.
No, awesome. Making tallow is super fun. But yes, if you know anybody, literally invest if you can. If you can't, help us in other ways. It's kind of like when we had our podcast going, AJ, which when we have time, we will definitely get that going again. But it's not just money. It's donating your time or donating your knowledge or just being involved in the community, because we do this together.
Yep.
Yeah. We From the Farm is successful because of a community of people and from all of us working together. It's not.
Yep.
It's not just us.
No. And with that, I'd say one last way you can help us is pray. We are praying. We are praying people, and you praying for us, that is going to be more helpful than really anything, and everything else will come from there. So you guys are amazing. Thanks for hanging out as long as you did. For those watching the replay, thanks for taking some time to watch this. I doubt you're going to watch an hour and 44 of what we just talked about, but for all of those who are here, we genuinely appreciate your questions, your comments, your interactions. And with that, shake the hand that feeds you.
If COVID showed us anything, it's how fragile our food supply chain really is.
I would hear the news talking about empty store shelves in the city, no meat. But yet I'm driving through the country and I see cattle standing in the field that a customer could buy. My name's AJ Richards, raised in St. George, Utah. My family are 5 generations of ranchers.
I'm Brooke Ants. Today it can be incredibly difficult to be a farmer or rancher, even for people that have been doing it generationally. It's not because of the work, but it's actually pressures from the big 4.
4 companies control 85% of our food supply chain. And in many cases, it's very clear that they're buying off politicians.
And if North Korea or China's Great Leap Forward have taught us anything, a centralized food supply can accidentally or intentionally kill a lot of people. Luckily, it's not all doom and gloom.
What's missing is a competitive marketplace. So I'm thinking about these unsold cows, and I just had this aha moment. What if somebody built a website similar to Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it highlighted and connected you with local farmers and ranchers so that we could actually go right to the producer?
So FromTheFarm.org is a digital farmers market connecting you, the customer, with local farmers and ranchers who produce meat, vegetables, fruit, and dairy. Plus, you can pick it up locally, and many producers even have shipping options.
The most important value of decentralization is food sovereignty. The ability for you as a sovereign individual to have the right to buy your food and source it where you choose. If you know the name of the producer growing it, you have now insulated yourself from not having it, like when the store shelves were empty.
We the people can take back control of our food Invest in your family, invest in From the Farm.
From the Farm helps families access food with more nutrition than what you're going to find at the grocery store.
Studies have shown repeatedly that locally farmed produce is more nutritionally rich than factory farmed food. It just is. You can't beat it.
Because these small family farmers and ranchers are growing it how they were taught by their grandparents and great-grandparents, which is quality over quantity, because they're putting their personal name on that product, not hidden behind some massive corporate logo.
Hormones, performance-enhancing drugs, and chemical treatments, including carbon monoxide, are just some of the things these corporations do to increase profits and improve shelf life, not your life.
Meanwhile, up to 40% of your meat's nutritional value is lost in the process. There's also the environmental impact from all the mileage your food racks up. Apples, 1,556 miles. Lettuce, 2,055 miles. And beef, a staggering 2,874 miles, all resulting in unnecessary pollution across the country. But when you buy from local growers, these numbers turn into these numbers.
Not only is shopping with From the Farm decreasing pollution and reclaiming your food sovereignty, but you are also getting a superior product. Parallel food economies or buying local is the future of food.
I was actually the first person to invest in From the Farm. I was 100% all in. I've started businesses, I've had some really cool opportunities in the entertainment industry and the sporting world, but getting healthy food into more Americans' hands is more important than anything I've ever done.
So right now we've assembled our team. We've got some amazing people on board to execute and make this happen. Like Isaac Barlow, who knows how to scale tech companies in the blue collar space because he's done it before. Now we're in the process of raising the funding from you guys to help us scale this to the next level. We can't do this alone. We need the strength of the American people behind us. Help us build a new food system that combines the wisdom of the past with the technology of the future. Investing in From the Farm isn't just a financial decision, it's an investment in our future, our small family farms, and our food sovereignty. Invest today.